Hey everyone, welcome back. Dave in History for the Ages here. So, the Lost Library of Alexandria, a really amazing place, may have had as many as 700,000 volumes of work and could have all been lost in one fire or maybe a series of events. We're going to talk about the library, what it was, how it was established, and what was lost, which is pretty stunning if you stop and think about it. This was one of the centers of knowledge in all of history. So Alexandria, of course, there's actually several Alexandrias. If you know anything about Alexander the Great, of course, he spread from Macedonia down to Greece, into Asia Minor, into Egypt, went all the way eastward, to basically bordering into India. But in the early 331 BC, he managed to make his way to Egypt. And that was in his initial part of his campaign. And before he left Egypt, he founded the city of Alexandria. He actually founded about 20 cities, all named Alexandria. He wasn't bashful, but this is the Alexandria. After he founded the city, later on, a famous library will be built there. So, what's the deal with the library? The library was created by the Ptolemy family. The Ptolemy family is a Greek family, same family that gave us Cleopatra, same family that gave us the Rosetta Stone. I have a little video on the Rosetta Stone if you've never seen it. And it's a Greek family that basically takes control of Egypt after Alexander dies and his empire collapses. It's the Ptolemy family controls Egypt. Anyways, so it was like a cosmopolis, Alexandria, in the sense that a polis means city state. Cosmopolis is grand. Had a massive population there, and it was kind of the cultural and intellectual center of probably the known world at the time. The library itself was part of what is called the Temple of Muses. It was kind of a research institution that housed scholars and scientists, writers from around what we call the Hellenistic world. So you had the Hellenic world, which was the Greek world, and then you have the Hellenistic world, which is kind of a world that's much more mobile, where you have people from the east and the west moving back and forth. And basically, any scrolls that came by through merchants were taken. And because Alexandria is a port city there, right along the coast, a lot of traffic is going in and out. And so if you're coming in with whatever it is, any sort of document, it would be taken and copied, sometimes just held on and never even returned, and it was kept in the Library of Alexandria. And so, even to the point, I mean, this was such a place of learning, of acquiring knowledge, that there were literally agents that were sent out to Greece, Egypt, as far east as India, and Mesopotamia to bring back knowledge and information. And at one point, it had kind of a copy of pretty much everything that existed was probably in the Library of Alexandria. This is what makes it such a remarkable place. And so, again, this never would have happened without Alexander stretching his borders east and west and creating this Hellenistic period. It's one of his, even though the library wasn't built during his time, of course, it's going to grow and grow and grow, never would have happened without Alexander. And so that's the foundation. That's how it was kind of set up and what it was used for. In terms of what was there, I mean, the collection is just, if you stop and you think about it, mind blowing. And I have a list here of just some of the things, mathematics, everyone's heard of Euclid, astronomy, the heliocentric ideas, right? I mean, when people think heliocentric statement, a lot of people think modern times, Copernicus and the heliocentric statement. But these were ideas that circulated way back into the ancient world. Various philosophers, Plato, Aristotle, even ones from the Eastern world were all kind of housed there. Obviously, Archimedes is another name a lot of people familiar with. This image is really cool. You see here, so you see Euclid there on the top. And this image on the bottom is from a man named Heron of Alexandria. And kind of this is an earlier steam powered device, right? When you think of like the steam engine, we usually think like 1700s AD, but it shows us they were already pondering and thinking about these things way back when. And all of these kind of bits of knowledge were in the Library of Alexandria. So it really did have quite an amazing collection. It was the center, again, of knowledge of that time. And it impacted the ancient world dramatically, right? People see it as kind of the first time we had a kind of a catalog system of human knowledge where it was all cataloged together. It created a whole classification system, even in a library. It becomes a research hub, becomes a translation center. A lot of the works were translated from other languages into Greek, right? And so as you come into other places and then they translate it into the Greek, which then was able to hold on to a lot of this knowledge. So it was used for translation, used for research. People came there to learn and study. It was a really cool place. So, of course, then the question is, well, what happened to the library? This is, of course, why is it called the Lost Library of Alexandria? And what we're pretty sure about it didn't just die in one big fire or one big thing. It probably happened over a series of events. So, during the fall of the Roman Republic, there were big civil wars. Julius Caesar was fighting Pompey. And at one point, there was a fire that was set to the port of Alexandria. The fire spread, and the fire probably hit at least some of the library, and at least some of the library was destroyed. Later on, what we see, of course, is the rise of Christianity. And for some people in the early rise of Christianity, they saw the Library of Alexandria as more of a pagan place, and it was therefore parts of it were recorded were destroyed. And seemingly, we see a similar thing when we see the rise of Islam around the 640s, when Caliph, specifically a man named Caliph Omar, he was accused of destroying some of the books and remaining scrolls burnt and so forth. I mean, some of this is not 100% well documented, to be fair, but it does seem pretty well documented that over time it was destroyed. So it's kind of a combination of just several fires and several different powers coming in destroying it, and just obviously erosion of these works over time. So the library, of course, became lost. And one of the question is, what is if it survived, right? And there are people, that's the what ifs. What maybe it wouldn't have mattered at all, right? In the sense that you could say, well, if it survived then longer, then there's all this information there, and maybe the scientific and Renaissance and medical knowledge that we're familiar with happened earlier, right? Maybe the scientific revolution happens earlier. Maybe the Renaissance happens earlier. Who knows, right? The problem with that argument, to be fair, is that even when the library was lost, it wasn't the only place of learning, right? There were places in Baghdad. When I cover my history of the Middle East class, I talk about, the Abbasids and some of the amazing places they had, this kind of house of wisdom there, that had a lot of the knowledge of the Greeks and Romans and Egyptians that was preserved there. And a lot of the texts, were around. They obviously were recovered. Obviously, there are things that were lost that we don't know what were lost because they were lost. So we may never know. So I do think probably losing it had some impact, but I don't think it would have been, if it was around, we would have all of a sudden been like 1,000 years ahead in technology or anything. But it's just a cool little place, the Lost Library of Alexandria. Some interesting facts about it. Hope you learned something new there. I have a ton of content, of course, all the stuff on the ancient world and a lot of other cool videos you can watch. So thank you for watching. I hope you found that was interesting, and we'll do some more topics in the future. Everyone have a great day.